夠鐘亦都。
Our members, we have attained the quorum. It is about time to make a start. This is the Environmental Affairs panel. We have a pretty heavy agenda today, so please maximize the time available. I will be very strict with the speaking time, so please work with me. Item number 1, confirmation of the minutes of the last meeting. I have received no proposed amendments regarding the minutes of the meeting held on November 24th last year, 2014, and no proposed amendments. I propose that the minutes are confirmed, so subject to your agreement, and the minutes are so endorsed. Information papers since the last meeting I have received from Dr. Elizabeth QUAT and Mr. Dennis KWOK regarding the handling of imported waste and also designation of low emission zones at busy corridors. Both members proposed that these be discussed at the meeting. I have no objection here. Now, as a matter of fact, in March we're going to have an item devoted to Dr. KWOK's proposal. So we will have these items on the March agenda. And you also suggested that members from other panels and also the Bureau officials be invited. As regards Dr. KWOK's proposal, I've included that in the list of outstanding items. We'll deal with them as we go along. All right? Item number 3, items for discussion at the next meeting. Will members please refer to the list of outstanding items and also the list of follow-up actions. The administration proposes that 3 items be discussed at the next meeting. Extension of the Cleaner Production Partnership Program. The second one is PWP item number 5183DR, refurbishment and upgrading of Sha-Tin transfer station and municipal solid waste charging. All right, any comments? No, so there you go. We have those 3 items on the agenda. Item 4, briefing by the Secretary for the Environment on Chief Executive's 2015 policy address, and there will be a Q&A session. Shall we invite the Secretary and his team into the meeting room? As usual, I'll invite the Secretary to give a briefing before I throw the floor open for questions. This is a pretty important subject. I allot 5 minutes to each member. I'd like to welcome Mr. Wong Kam Singh, Secretary for Environment, Ms. Christine O, Under Secretary, Ms. Anissa Wong, Permanent Secretary, Mr. Vincent Liu, Deputy Secretary, Mr. Che Chin-Wah, Deputy Director, and Mr. Howard Chan, Deputy Director of the EPD. All right. I understand you have a very detailed presentation, but please make it brief, Secretary, please. Chairman, thank you. Thanks very much. I will briefly brief members on the highlights of the policy address regarding the environment issues. There are 5 main aspects: air quality through to conservation, energy conservation, waste management, and water quality improvement of the harbour. First, electricity. In the coming years, there will be consultation on the scheme of control, and this will be a key subject for discussion. In terms of demand management and also the supply, we attach equal importance. So we will take forward energy efficiency. As regards energy efficiency in green building, that the energy consumption for buildings take up 90%, so green building will be an important subject. In the policy address, there is a mention of a steering committee on green building, and we will be taking concerted efforts to look at the energy efficiency. Now, there will be a target for energy efficiency, and we are putting together a blueprint to review this kind of this area of work. Now, there was a mention in the policy address the fact that for existing government buildings, over the years we have been having a emission reduction target in the coming 5 years. We will have further reduction of electricity consumption by 5%. In terms of electricity supply, reliability, safety, environmental performance, and so on, we will be conducting a review this year. The second area is nature conservation. This has to do with biodiversity, country parks, and marine parks. We have been liaising with the experts, the stakeholders, and the green groups to discuss the policy regarding BSAP. The idea, the objective is to launch a consultation this year, and by the end of the year we should be able to formulate the first biodiversity strategy and action plan for Hong Kong by the end of 2015. There are 4 areas regarding nature and countryside conservation. Other than increasing the areas of the marine park, we will also be looking at the country parks in Hong Kong. We have seen an increase in the size of the country park. With Site 1 being put in, we do have a management plan involving the villages and then the stakeholders as to how the management plan can be taken forward. And in the vicinity of the country parks, there is a land for which there can be further cooperation to bring in the NGOs. We adopt an open mind, and we welcome any innovative ideas to make sure that the rural areas can be maintained, can be conserved. Turning now to water quality. The HAT 2A, or Harbour Area Treatment Scheme 2A, is to be completed this year. As you can see, the water quality in the harbour has seen some improvement. We have reported these to the panel. We're going to have an urban coastal water quality study. And on both sides of the Victoria Harbour, we have seen water quality measuring up to the required standards. And through the cooperation with the relevant departments, we should be able to create a better environment for the promotion of water-friendly culture in West Kowloon and other parts of the harbour. Now, members are aware that we do have the Footwise program, the waste to energy, clean recycling, and hygienic waste transport landfilling. We will have the objective of reducing by 40% landfilling loads. In 2015, we're going to have a pretty heavy workload. There are 2 things I'd like to highlight here. The first one is the recycling fund. We hope that we get the Finance Committee support to take forward this fund, and come the 1st of April, we're going to have the full implementation of charging for plastic shopping bags. Waste reduction is the key target for us. In 2015, we're going to enact the relevant legislation. And there will be proposals to be put to the council, like the charging for MSW, Municipal Solid Waste. We have received the Sustainable Development Council's proposal to put forward the framework proposal. And construction waste, it is our aim to report to the council the findings of the study. Now in April, we'll be introducing the charging for plastic shopping waste. Now for WEEE, we're seeking funding for the facilities to be built in the Eco Park. This year, we will be introducing bill to the council. Bottle beverages, we will be extending the network of recycling, and we will get on with the legislative formulation. Food-wise, we have about 400 or so organizations that have signed the charter. In the coming year, they will be reducing food waste by 15 or so %. Under the ECF, $10 million will be set aside to support 8 organizations to collect food waste for donation purposes. And 800 tons of food waste can be transferred to the relevant people. And we will have a larger proportion of our efforts devoted to the food waste reduction and the transfer of food waste. We have the food waste eateries program. We're encouraging the food eateries to have a portion menu. If they prefer a smaller portion of rice, they can have this option. And recycling, other than the apps that will notify the public of the 7,000 collection points, we also expand the green procuring and increase the efficiency of the recyclers. We have 2 green community green stations that have come on the stream. We have a working group on recycling, and we are considering how we can expand this particular area.
In terms of waste to energy, I'd like to highlight 4 points. First, the organic waste treatment facilities in Siu Ho Wan in Lantau Island. The contract has been granted, and hopefully it can be put into operation very soon. And the sludge treatment facility at Chun Mun is also entering its final phase, and it can also be put into operation very soon. And we're also collecting landfill gas in order to convert them to energy. And for our integrated waste management facility, we will begin the tendering process in due course. And in terms of hygienic waste transport and landfilling, thanks to the funding approval, we are promoting the relevant measures. And in terms of air quality, we have the first blueprint for clean air, or the clean air print, and the words in red highlights the programs we have already implemented, and the rest are also underway. And by 2020, we will be able to achieve the new air quality ordinance objective. And between 2010 to 2014, we have achieved certain targets. For example, for respirable suspended particulates, nitrogen oxides, nitrogen dioxide, etc. You can see the figures here. For ozone, it's still a challenge for us. And we are facing certain regional challenges. So in the coming year, we are going to step up regional cooperation. And we are also hoping to reduce emissions from marine vessels. And we are targeting ocean-going vessels this year to switch to green fuel this year, and we will also tighten the emission allowances for electricity generation, and for non-road mobile machinery, we will also submit new regulation to the Legislative Council. And for roadside emissions, franchise buses are one of our important scopes of work. And for busy areas like Causeway Bay, Central and Mong Kok, and buses account for at least 40% of all the vehicles, and the emissions also account for a significant proportion of the total emissions. So encouraging low emission buses is one of our key areas of work. At the same time, we have a scheme to phase out old diesel commercial vehicles, and we are doing more work than other cities. And we will already phase out all the pre-Euro, Euro 1, 2, and 3 DCVs by 2019, and as such, Hong Kong will effectively become a low-emission city. And on vehicle emissions, apart from old diesel commercial vehicles, we will adopt a regulatory incentive approach, and by the end of 2014, we have already phased out about 21,000 DCVs, and we'll also step up emission control of various petrol and LPG vehicles. And we are talking about a lot of taxis and minibuses, and we will also step up the maintenance and examination of such vehicles. And at the same time, we are also promoting the use of electric vehicles. And this is a brief summary of the development of electric vehicles in Hong Kong. And in the past year or so, the overall number of electric vehicles in Hong Kong has increased substantially, and we'll continue to encourage the use of electric vehicles. We will step up government procurement, and we'll also roll out as a trial scheme for single-decked buses, and we'll also and the e-taxi suppliers will also set up quick chargers in government car parks, and we'll have more charging facilities overall. We will continue to enhance the clear air plan. We'll take a three-pronged approach, and we'll step up public education on the air quality index, and as you can see from the figures, enhancing cross-boundary collaboration is also key. And we have earmarked 150 million to commence a new phase of the Cleaner Production Partnership Program. And we are trying to help factories in Guangdong to lower emissions, especially PVCs. And we are trying to enhance this, the situation in the entire region. Thank you very much, Secretary, for the in-depth presentation. So now we have reached the Q&A session. Member who'd like to ask questions, please raise your hands. Mr. Wong Kwok Hin, Kwa Wing Hang, 5 minutes, please. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I have 2 questions for the administration. I see that the Bureau has done a lot of work, but unfortunately, the questions I want to ask don't fall under any of the things you are doing. The reason for asking these questions is that these are very important areas that need to be addressed, and they shouldn't be forgotten. First, about the issue of light pollution. And in urban areas, light pollution is a serious problem. As a democratic legislator in the Hong Kong Island, I'm well aware of these problems, and the problem has persisted for almost a year. We've talked about it briefly, so I'd like to see if there's any progress today. When I look at the policy address and the policy agenda, light pollution has not been covered. And my second question is, is the noise pollution. And I'm actually referring to noise barriers in a lot of highways and roads. A lot of residents are bothered by noise. For example, Hengfa Chun, as I mentioned many times, there's a serious problem in Hengfa Chun. In the coming year, will the government allocate extra resources on improving the situation in these residential areas? The residents have been waiting for decades, literally, and yet they have not seen any progress. Can anyone address the issue of noise pollution? Mr. Vincent Liu, Deputy Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. As you might be aware, the government set up an outdoor light pollution working panel, and public consultations have been held, and the government has met stakeholders to gather their views. And at the moment, the panel is gathering views from all walks of the society, and in the coming future, a report will be compiled and submitted to the administration, and we will also report to the panel later on. What about the issue of noise barriers? Mr. Che Chin-wan, Deputy Director, thank you very much for the question. We would not ignore the problem of noise pollution. As some members might be aware, we have chosen 40 roads which face a serious problem of noise, and we will install noise barriers at those roads. And for 20 roads or so, the construction works have not yet started, as Mr. Wang said. For example, for roads in Hengfa Chun. In the coming future, we will allocate more resources and begin construction work for these 20 or so roads. And we are also stepping out our efforts on building noise barriers, and we will also do better in the design and planning of new towns. And for existing roads, we are also experimenting with new technologies, and we will consider using some soundproof materials which are fit for urban roads. And together with the Housing Department, for new buildings, we will also test the use of new noise soundproof materials. So we are testing various new approaches. Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to hear the report from the two departments. So can the Secretary incorporate these measures into the policy agenda? I hope the Secretary can fight for more resources from the Financial Secretary to install more noise barriers. I understand that you are eager to get it done, but then there's a lack of funds. So with the budget coming up, I hope you can ask for more money from the Financial Secretary. Secretary, I guess you've heard what he said, right? Yes, Mr. Kwok Wing Hang. The Secretary mentioned the water quality at Victoria Harbour as well as the issue of conservation, but he did not mention the conservation of marine life and water quality in water bodies outside the Victoria Harbour. And as you have read from the news today, a lot of green groups are very concerned with Chinese white dolphins and the situation at the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge. And we are looking at a few issues here. First, have you actually examined the mitigation measures at the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge? For example, the sand and sludge barriers, and have you confirmed or checked whether these measures are really effective in protecting the dolphins? Are these mitigation measures really effective? And the second question is, according to news reports, some people feel that the number of Chinese white dolphins has no relation with the Hong Kong Zhuhai Macau Bridge project. Are these claims substantiated? And third, I think under the existing EIA ordinance, the technical memorandum at the moment must be updated. It was drawn up in 1997, and between then and now, a lot of criteria such as air quality, marine impact, public impact, etc. A lot of things need to be reviewed. So we need to really consider updating or improving the technical memorandum. These have not been mentioned in the policy address this year, but nevertheless, these are issues Green groups are concerned about. Mr. Vincent Liu, Deputy Secretary, please. Thank you very much for the question. For the EIA report of the Hong Kong Zhuhai Macau Bridge, certain mitigation measures were requested to protect marine life, including the Chinese white dolphin. The key to monitoring these measures is that we would ask the project proponents, in other words, the Highways Department, to hire an independent environmental supervisor, and the supervisor would look at statistics provided by the Highways Department and see whether the HYD had implemented the measures as promised, and a report will be submitted to us. So we are not just counting on the Highways Department to do the monitoring. And at the same time, we will work with the AFCD to perform checks at various sites. So we do have independent assessors, and we'll also conduct spot checks to see whether the measures are being carried out. And for the before the Hong Kong Zhuhai Macau Bridge project was commenced, and after it was commenced, together with the HYD, we will monitor the number of Chinese white dolphins. As you know, after the work commenced, the dolphins would leave the work site, and as such, the number would decrease. And this is really within our estimation, because it's only natural that the dolphins would leave after the project commenced.
We've consulted the AFCD to see whether these changes have any correlation with the projects. Now, we saw the changes near the work sites. The AFCD, however, would monitor the Chinese white dolphins in the western part of Hong Kong. It is their view that after 2011, the number of Chinese white dolphins in the western part of Hong Kong waters has stabilized, and there is no evidence to show that with the commencement of the bridge, there has been a reduction. So what we are looking at is that the Chinese white dolphins have left the areas where the work is being undertaken. We're asking the highways to monitor the situation. We have to make sure that they are not adversely affected, and other than the banning of dredging and so on, they have to monitor the movement of the Chinese white dolphins. If there is any sighting within 250 meters, work will have to stop. There have been 6 occasions where there were dolphin sightings that work has to be suspended. So this has been effective in protecting the Chinese white dolphins. What about the EIA figures? Are you going to improve that? Well, the TM is brought up to date on a regular basis. If the water quality or the air quality has to be improved, we will do so accordingly, and the EIA will adopt a tighter requirement in terms of noise and air. If we need to tighten up the standard, the TM would be updated accordingly. Mr. Kwok. Mr. Kwok, I beg your pardon. I said that I'll be very tight, very strict with the time. I've given you 1 more minute. Well, I asked him when the highways conducted the checking and what information was available. Well, he has answered the question. If you're not happy with the reply, please join the queue again, or you might wish to put in a written question. Dr. Hon Elizabeth QUAT and Mr. Kenneth Leung. Chairman, the Secretary mentioned the energy to waste energy program. Now, in the transparency in the slide, there has been mention of this program. Are there any further programs that will continue with the effort of waste energy initiatives? Mr. Chen. Chairman, we have 3 programs, in fact 4 programs for which funding has been approved, like the methane gas from the landfills. Other than those 4, are there any further initiatives in this regard? Mr. Chen. Well, the Secretary already mentioned this year we will embark on a study on the facilities all of Hong Kong. We will look at the waste to energy technology, having regard to the practices in other jurisdictions. We will see whether they are applicable to Hong Kong. We will look into other areas as well. Dr. QUAT, how soon will this study be conducted, and how soon are you going to consult us? Mr. Chen. Chairman, we are doing the preliminary work by the middle part of this year. The study will get underway. We anticipate that it would take about 1.5 to 2 years to complete. Dr. QUAT, my second question is this. Over the years, the government has been doing a lot of waste reduction on land, but what about at sea? I don't think much has been done. So in the coming year or so, how are you going to promote waste reduction at sea in relation to vessels? Chairman, we've been doing quite a bit in this regard. In April last year, we have enacted a piece of legislation regarding the low sulfur fuel. The content cannot be more than 0.05%. This has been endorsed by LegCo and has come into effect on the 1st of April. This has been very effective in managing the emissions. For ocean-going vessels, we are drafting a legislation for these vessels to switch to low-sulfur fuel while they're at berth in Hong Kong. And this is nearing completion. We should be able to introduce the bill to the Council in the next couple of months. We hope that this will be introduced within this year. Green building, Chairman, we understand that there is a lot of construction waste being generated, and we don't seem to have a lot of legislation to make sure that the whole construction process will be sufficiently green. And the government is doing this as far as they are able to. I don't think we have seen a lot of achievements. So other than what is mentioned earlier on, are there any initiatives that can be implemented to make sure that the construction or the buildings can be more environmentally friendly? Secretary, Chairman, green construction can reduce construction waste, and it can also reduce emission. Now we have a system where we charge by the load. As far as construction waste is concerned, 95% of the waste is segregated, and they take up about a quarter of the landfill volumes. So we will be adjusting the fees and charges, and together with the CIC, Construction Industry Council, we are liaising with the trade to see how the procurement can be done in such a way that the construction waste can be reduced, like more prefabricated materials can be used, and through the promotion of green building accreditation, all government buildings and private buildings will be included. We hope that in the first half of this year we should have the details regarding energy efficiency and reduction of emissions and so on. Mr. Kenneth Leung and then Ms. Sit Ho. Chairman, thank you. The Secretary told us earlier on that the bus companies are experimenting with the hybrid buses and electric buses. My question for the Secretary is this: how soon will the data be made available to the Council regarding the trial of these buses? Now, you're trying them out, but what incentives are there to incentivize the bus companies to procure these kinds of buses? Second, it has to do with air quality, and that is the regional cooperation regarding the air quality. China entered into a declaration with the U.S. Regarding the climatic change. Is the government going to review the carbon emission and also the emission targets with the region? If so, can you be more specific about the details, please? Deputy Director, Mr. Lai. Chairman, thank you. Hybrid buses and electric buses, we are subsidizing the bus operators to procure 6 hybrid buses. The pilot has already started for 2 years. As regards single-decker electric buses, the first batch should be starting within the year for 2 years. We will be liaising with the Transport Department closely to ascertain the effectiveness of the trial, and the trial report will be submitted to the panel for an update. How many single-decker electric buses? 6. No, hybrid buses 6. Single-decker electric buses 36. Mr. Leung asked you how you're going to incentivize the bus operators to switch to these buses. Mr. Lai. Now, how the bus operators use these green buses would depend on the effectiveness of the trial and the technology. We will liaise with the Bureau and the bus operators. What about cross-boundary pollution? Yes, cross-boundary pollution. Who's going to take the question, Mr. Lai? Yes, Chairman. Cross-boundary pollution, we're doing a two-pronged approach together with the Guangdong Environmental Bureau. In terms of water and air, we can, through regional cooperation, reduce the emissions. Now, for air, 2015 to 2010, 2015-2020, we're going to have the target regarding 4 types of pollutants. Also, like the Secretary said a few moments ago, we do have the clean production scheme, the partnership scheme, and we are encouraging the reliance on the clean technology to reduce emission. We're going to spend $150 million to promote this program. As regards the details, we will come back to the panel with further details. Mr. Leung. Mr. Lai mentioned the emission of pollutants. It doesn't include the carbon emission. Can you be more specific about the carbon emission? Ms. Christine Law. Mr. Leung mentioned the agreement between China and the U.S. Now, in Paris, at the summit meeting, the subject of carbon emission will be brought up for discussion before the end of the year. Now, in response to a COP21 meeting, we are going to have a policy paper regarding climate change, and we will have a look at the mainland situation. Their objective is in 2030, they will cap the carbon emission. In Hong Kong, we will look at the situation here in Hong Kong. Now, are they going to put a cap on the use of coal? Now, we have already put a cap on the use of coal in Hong Kong. So in the paper, we will take stock of the Hong Kong situation as well. Ms. Sit Ho and then Ms. Dr. Priscilla Leung. Chairman, thank you. At the previous panel meeting, we did ask the administration what measures we have to respond to the measures adopted by China regarding climate change. Now, there are very drastic measures in the mainland of China. If the construction program or project cannot clear through the EIA, there will be no land, no water, no electricity supply. We may not go that far here in Hong Kong, but as far as the infrastructure projects, in terms of air pollution, do we have any tracking study to ascertain whether the projects which have adopted the environmental measures, whether they are able to measure up to scratch? If we do not conduct any tracking study, it would be difficult for us to take any further steps. Now, in the 10 measures in the mainland of China, they incorporate the pollution into the management system, and depending on the grading of the pollution, they will reduce the emission from motor vehicles, for instance. But here in Hong Kong, we don't have a measure like this. Last week, there was a day on which air pollution was particularly serious. Chronically ill people and senior citizens should not go out and about. So what about other measures like the banning of incineration or the banning of heavy-duty vehicles and so on? We don't have measures like this in Hong Kong. Mr. Lai, thank you very much, Ms. Sit Ho, for the question. In extremely severe weather condition, we will do two things. The first one is to do publicity through the AQHI on heavily polluted days. We would advise the senior citizens or those who are suffering from pulmonary diseases to take measures. So we will do education. And second, we have an internal mechanism whereby if the pollution is high for a sustained period of time, then we will activate a cross-departmental mechanism. What about sustained, high, and serious? Can you elaborate, please?
As far as air quality health index is concerned, an index of more than 10 for multiple days would be defined as serious, and the concentration of air pollutants would also be high. So we will have an interdepartmental working group to see what we can do. And under our existing contingency plan, the FEHD's cleaning team might need to clean the streets more regularly, and for highly polluted days, we might have to shut down certain coal modules, and for certain incinerators that deal with chemicals, we might also consider suspending them. So we will look at the actual situation to see what we are going to do. And for heavy-duty vehicles with high emissions, are you going to impose restrictions on highly polluted days, and will you have any controls to help relieve the air quality, to relieve the roadside air quality? For vehicle emissions, we are getting to the roots of the problems. We are hoping to enhance emission standards of all vehicles across the board. And as the Secretary said, we have a large-scale subsidy scheme, and hopefully we will phase out 82,000 pre-Euro, Euro 1, 2, or 3 DCVs by the end of 2019. So we are hoping to enhance emission standards of all vehicles. Buses are heavily polluting. And before now in 2019, what are you going to do when you see multiple days of high pollution? In the policy address this year, we stated that we will set up low emission zones in Causeway Bay, Mong Kok, and Central, and the bus companies can only send low emission buses in those districts, so they can only send Euro 4 or above DCVs. Dr. Priscilla Leung, Mr. Wu Chi-wai. Chairman, in the policy address this year, we are happy that the government has taken on board our suggestion of enhancing our water-friendly culture, and there were 4 paragraphs in these areas. And in paragraph 163, when we talked about low emission zones, we mentioned Mong Kok. So what are the government's specific measures? In terms of water quality, we conducted a lot of site visits, surveys, and studies led by Professor Ho, and we understand that you face a number of challenges, including coordination between different departments. We are talking about Marine Department, Home Affairs Department, for water recreation facilities listed in paragraphs 180 and 181, how we can revitalize the water bodies. The planning department or the planning department might also be involved. So a lot of the measures involve multiple departments. Can the Environment Bureau do all the coordination? As we've always mentioned, we hope that the Chief Secretary can take a leading role to give you the mandates to conduct all these tasks. I'm happy to see progress in improving water quality and promoting a water-friendly culture, because this is what we have been fighting for many, many years. For low emission zones, I'd like to highlight the district of Mong Kok, and for the Yau Chin Mong district, and the Water Supplies Department has relocated its plants to Eastern New Territories, and I've heard about a lot of difficulties of the WSD for the relocation exercise. So what is your latest progress on this, and what is your view on this issue? First question, Mr. Che Chin-wan, Deputy Director. Thank you very much for the question. And on water pollution in Chuen Wan and Tai Kok Tsui, we have already involved multiple departments. We have set up an interdepartmental working group, and we've invited the DSD, the Home Affairs Department, the FEHD, and the Buildings Department. We do need different departments to help out. So this is our current approach. And for the Victoria Harbour, we decided to begin with a study. And we will set up a monitoring group, which is interdepartmental in nature, and hopefully we can come up with some solutions. And each department will be in charge of this of one specific function. And we also working with the Home Affairs Department to look at the water quality in different water bodies, and they would step up promotion efforts as well. So interdepartmental coordination is very important. If I'm correct, the second question is the relocation of the Water Supplies Department, the headquarters, right? Can anyone address this question? On the relocation of the Mong Kok WSD office. This has been discussed in the past. If there's anything the Environmental Protection Department can work with other departments, we are very happy to consider them. And for interdepartmental cooperation, we have plans to establish low emission zones. If franchise bus companies would like to deploy more buses to Mong Kok or Causeway Bay, we would coordinate with the Transport Department and the respective bus companies. And 2 years ago, the agreements for certain franchise buses would be would expire, and the low emission requirement would be introduced to the new agreements. Mr. Wushiwai and Mr. Sinchokai, I have 2 questions on the improvement of air quality. First, the utilization of bicycles and dedicated pedestrian paths in urban areas. Would the EPD have a bigger role to play? And what's your view in terms of encouraging low-emission transport, such as bicycles? And how would you encourage the use of pedestrian paths? And for the issue of for the electricity agreements, what do you actually mean by international standards? Do we really have to meet those international standards before we can go forward? And can we have a more versatile approach? Is this viable? And on the issue of light pollution, and at the entrance of the eastern tunnel, the issue of light pollution is very serious, and the eastern tunnel will be returned in 2016. So, are you going to tackle the issue of light pollution before then? And are you going to have any improvement plans? The administration mentioned that the housing department is testing the use of new windows in new buildings, and actually they have been very effective, and they can reduce the noise level by 7 decibels. For areas that face serious noise pollution, are you going to ask the housing department to adopt these new windows in its existing housing estates? We don't have to retrofit new windows, but we can actually upgrade the existing windows. If you have to wait until, if you are being so passive and have to wait until the roads are finished, it might be very late. And for the issue of onshore power system, power supply, from the EPD's perspective, we encourage green transports. So we would certainly encourage the use of bikes and pedestrian paths. And we would also maintain communication with the planning department. And under paragraph 187 of the policy address, the chief executive mentioned Kowloon East as a new pilot's point for minimizing the conflict between pedestrians and vehicles. So we will work with the Development Bureau on this front. And on onshore power supply, and we have commissioned the CEDD to conduct a detailed technical assessment, and we have already finished the assessment. And we have also looked at other countries in the world to see what they are doing in terms of onshore power supply. In the next 3 years, we will come up with another report, and we will report the matter back to the panel. And light pollution and soundproof windows. For light pollution, we have a panel on outdoor lighting, and in the coming year they will submit their suggestions to the administration, and after considering the suggestions, we'll report the matter back to the panel on EA. For areas that are bothered by noise or light pollution, we will refer the matter to relevant individuals or organizations. Have you conducted any study on light pollution at the Eastern Tunnel? We have conducted an overall study of light pollution in Hong Kong for specific properties or areas. If they see problems, they are free to share relevant information with us, and we'll discuss the matter with them to see how we can minimize disturbance to the residents. And the use of soundproof windows. We are running a pilot scheme with the housing department to check on the effectiveness of such windows, as well as whether these windows are convenient to the residents. It's the first time we adopt such windows, and we hope to provide some convenience to the residents. These windows are rather thick, and we have to accumulate more experience and iron out certain issues. And whether we can adopt such windows in existing estates is a rather complicated issue. We have to consider a number of technical factors, and we are talking about facades, and we have to see whether the facades can support such windows. We have not done any relevant studies, so at the moment we have no plans of retrofitting these windows at existing housing estates. For new estates, we will promote the new windows. For existing estates, we have to conduct more studies before we know whether these windows can be used. Mr. Sin Chung Kai. The Secretary talked about minimizing local emissions, and he talked about establishing low emission zones. But when I looked into the details or the fine prints, for buses, you would ask the operators to phase out all pre-Euro or Euro 1, 2, and 3 DCVs. But for other kinds of vehicles, you have to wait until the end of 2019. And you mentioned that by December 2014, 1/4 of the vehicles have been phased out. Is there anything more we can do? For instance, by the end of 2019, before then we still have 5 years. So can you do something by 2016? For pre-Euro 4 vehicles, would you allow them to operate, but you might bar them from entering certain districts? Is that something we can do in order to speed up the enhancement of air quality in urban areas?
And
as we are aware, in Causeway Bay, Mongkok, or even in Central, the car fumes pollution is pretty serious because of the high rises there. If this is done, then these 4 districts would see improvement. According to the paper, in 2019, the whole of Hong Kong will see low emission situation. Can you advance that? Ms. Christine Low. Chairman, I think the concept is clear. For this to happen, people may accuse us of being unfair. In 2014, we have replaced the 82,000 diesel vehicles in 2014. We said that in 2016, pre-Euro vehicles will have to be phased out, and in 2017 and 2019, we do have the time frame to phase out the old vehicles. we are pleased to say that things are happening pretty fast. This year we have phased out so many vehicles, a quarter of the fleet. If we were to say now that by the end of the year the diesel vehicles will be prohibited in the commercial districts for delivery and so on because of a new policy, and we are telling them that the timetable for replacement would be longer, then there would be repercussions from the trade. So if we can keep the existing timetable, it should still be acceptable. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, I don't find it acceptable if you're not prepared to do it. According to your timetable, now if you advance the timetable by 3 years, Causeway Bay, Mong Kok and Central, if you prohibit the pre-Euro 4 vehicles in these districts, that they can ply on the road, but it's just that they cannot gain entrance to these areas. That they can choose to scrap their vehicles sooner rather than later. That would improve air quality in these various districts. It's only a matter of perception. In other jurisdictions, or in Hong Kong, there are so many people going or commuting to work in these districts. If you can reduce emission, it would certainly be good for everybody all around. Secretary. Chairman, I'm sure we're all concerned about the roadside air quality for the 3 districts. If you look at the pollutants, and if you look at the bus low emission zones, now we're particularly concerned about the nitrogen oxide. Through this low emission program, we can reduce by 80% of the nitrogen oxide. For heavy-duty vehicles, we have a different proportion of these vehicles passing through, so we are targeting at the buses. If we have to have extra regulation, we do need to have the legislation in place, and we'll have to devote a lot of efforts. But we do have the program to phase out these older vehicles. In the coming few years, this will achieve a pretty good result. Mr. KWOK, and then Mr. Tony J. I'd like to put a question regarding the resource recycling blueprint. It would make a difference to whether we can become an environmentally friendly city. Now, this blueprint covers a horizon of 10 years. In 2017, there should be a 20% reduction in terms of per capita waste. According to the existing pace of the blueprint, is the 2017 interim target of 20% reduction achievable? Now, with the housing production target, things are very clear year on year. But with regard to this recycling blueprint, we don't have the year-on-year target. We're only talking about the 27 midterm target of 20%. Are we on track to achieving this? Second, recycling. Now, whether the recycling work is a success or not will make a difference to this blueprint. The administration is heavily reliant on the frontline recyclers that are operating in residential areas. We would encourage them to do more in the way of recycling, and that should be fine. But the thing is, there is a lack of supervision. They are dealing with the waste on the household waste, but they are in the process generating a lot more waste, like the oil pollution and so on. And people are subject to these undesirable nuisances? How can we make sure that these small-time recyclers can get on with their work while reducing the nuisance to the members of the public in such a way that they can coexist with the residents there? Mr. Chen. Chairman, about the target of the blueprint, there is a PowerPoint in this regard. 2017, a reduction of 20%. We are proceeding according to our target. Now we have the charging scheme for the municipal solid waste, and also the producer responsibility system, the food waste reduction, the publicity. In the PowerPoints of the secretaries, from 2013 to 2017, we are proceeding on track. In 2017, if all the measures, all the initiatives are proceeding on target, we should be able to achieve this particular objective. For recycling, this year we are going to have a working group on hygienic recycling. We will be inviting the trade, the recycling trade, the building management companies, the green groups, local organizations, as well as the recyclers. We will bring them all together in this working group in the hope that we can do a better job in terms of recycling. Now, you talked about some small-time recyclers and the supervision. In fact, they come under the supervision of the existing ordinance, like street obstruction and also pollution and so on. The FHD and the EPD do enforce the law. At different locations, we will be acting on complaints and take enforcement action in order to minimize the nuisance that they cause in the neighboring areas. If we get the funding from the Finance Committee for the Recycling Fund, we will be receiving applications from the recyclers. If they want to bid for funding to enhance their work procedures to minimize pollution, we will send earmark funding for them to get this done. Mr. Kwok, well, hygienic recycling, would there be any other forms of supervision? I know that the FHD is monitoring them, but they're not doing an effective job. Would there be another framework of regulation to minimize the nuisance? Mr. Chen, our idea is to enhance the performance. We're not trying to do this by penalizing them. We hope that they will be able to make improvement in terms of manpower, in terms of logistics. If they can remove the recyclables more frequently, then this would minimize the nuisance. Mr. Tony J, Chairman, the ENB over the past couple of years has done so much in terms of air quality, waste to energy efforts, and waste management and so on. Some have showed tangible results. Some we're still awaiting results. But as far as the promotion of green building, I don't think they have gone far enough. Mr. Secretary, you are no stranger to green building. You have done so much in the past in the promotion of green building. We should give more incentives to the buildings to achieve green building initiatives. In his policy address, paragraph 176, it talks about the fact that over the next 5 years, the government buildings will achieve a reduction in energy consumption by 5%, and you will do more in achieving energy efficiency, and this has everything to do with air quality in Hong Kong. So here, I'd like to put this to the administration. For existing buildings, other than the government, if the private sector is prepared to do it, they can also do so much in achieving energy efficiency. The paper mentions the liaison with the corporations, and more publicity will be done. But businessmen will focus a lot on their returns on the bottom line. So, Mr. Secretary, will there be any incentives that you are prepared to offer to encourage them to install any facilities that would achieve energy efficiency, or will there be any tax incentives for them to do so? I'd like to hear more from the administration in this regard, because this is really near and dear to the hearts of many people. The second question is in relation to electric vehicles, in particular private vehicles. Many are tempted to use it, but so many people don't really want them after they have bought them. I know that there are facilities for recharging in government car parks, but you can't really always use the government parking facilities. What about parking facilities in private residential buildings? My understanding is that the juice points are not available in many car parks. That they have their fixed parking spaces, and it would be difficult to make provision for the charging facilities in these car parks. So are you doing anything in this regard? Also, some people do not mind walking a little bit longer, but some pavements are simply not conducive to walking because of the sheer amount of pollution. Now we talked about the low emission zones. If we have more of these kind of zones, people are prepared to do more walking. So going forward, I would like to see more measures being undertaken. All right, shall we invite the administration? Mr. Lau? Green building. Yes, Chairman. In terms of green building, the government is adopting a three-prong approach. The first one is legislation. A couple of years ago, we enacted the Building Energy Efficiency Ordinance, whereby we specify the energy efficiency targets for buildings. Now, for commercial buildings, they have to conduct an energy audit every 10 years. Now, there are three phases for this. The first phase covered about 1,000 or so buildings. We are in the process of getting on with the second phase. By 2016 or thereabout, or before that, all these commercial residential buildings will have completed the energy audit. And thereafter, depending on the audit results, they will adopt energy efficiency measures.
At the same time, we are providing incentives for building owners or developers to come up with green buildings. If developers propose certain greening measures, we can offer a relaxation on the gross floor area. And as with the previous 5 years, we have set a target of 5 years, 5% for the next 5 years, and in the past 5 years, we've actually overachieved. And as such, these are some of the initiatives we're doing to promote green building. For electric vehicles, Mr. Lai, Andrew Lai, please. And we understand the importance to popularize electric vehicles, and we have over 100 charging stations in Hong Kong now. And we are also reviewing the latest technologies. Last year, the MSD upgraded 100 charging stations to shorten the charging time by 1/3 to 1/2, and for starting from 2010, we have been providing an incentive to encourage new developers to introduce charging facilities at commercial residential buildings. And as such, many new buildings already have the infrastructure in place for charging facilities. For existing buildings, the costs for introducing these facilities is relatively higher, and through the EMSD, we have issued a set of guidelines to let the owners, corporations know what to do if they want to install charging facilities at their buildings, and we've also set up a hotline. Mr. Albert Chen. I'm rather disappointed at the overall direction of the government's environmental initiatives. Basically, the government still lacks the courage to face our environmental challenges, and it has not done anything on promoting mandatory reduction of waste at source. The administration is not open enough, and you're biased towards some developers. For instance, for the replacement of old vehicles, you are only benefiting the big vehicle providers. A lot of your policies and initiatives are only scratching the surface, and you said you would tackle plastic shopping bags, glass bottles, and so on. In fact, many of the policies have already been implemented by other cities for a long time, and yet the Hong Kong government is still way too slow, and you're wasting public money. You should be separating resources at source, but yet we are putting them in our landfills. So the government lacks a commitment in terms of governance. The current approach is rather closed, and it's a waste of our resources. When you look at the government's policy agenda, a lot of the issues are not under the Environment Bureau. A lot of them are filed under Home Affairs, etc. A lot of the initiatives have been planned for a long time ago, and there isn't anything new. When you look at page 103, design competition for the Kai Tak River, well, I'm sure you have more useful things to do. If this competition, it's a joke to see this in the policy agenda. And for air quality, I hope the Secretary can make a better commitment and come up with better solutions. Over the years, you said the government has done a lot of things to improve roadside air quality. For example, replacing taxis, minibuses, and phasing out pre-Euro 4 vehicles. But there's a lack of coordination in enhancing air quality, water quality, and land quality. And for areas near the airport, for instance, Tung Chung, you seem to be unaware of pollution generated by aircrafts at all. Are you going to come up with an integrated pollution index for air pollution, land pollution, and water pollution? If you don't have an integrated index, well, we will see disaster in Tung Chung very soon. It will be disastrous in terms of air quality. If you don't have an integrated index, you cannot tackle this issue. Will you consider coming up with such an index? Chairman, basically I don't agree with Mr. Chen. Our blueprint was drawn up after detailed discussions with relevant experts, and the blueprint covers recycling, air quality management, and we all agree that this is a pragmatic approach. But the overall idea, the overall direction is correct and in line with Hong Kong's situation. For managing separation of waste at source, we have to respect the local culture, so we cannot make direct comparisons with other cities or countries. Will you introduce an integrated air quality index? Even if you are not an expert, you can still conduct some studies. Even by common sense, you understand that actually some experts have pointed out that the pollution generated by vessels is a substantial generator of air pollution in Hong Kong. You are very close-minded. Undersecretary, please. We do have an air quality index, and we also have an emission inventory which lists out emissions generated at sea, on land, and by air. If we are to tackle all the air pollutant sources, we have to come up with different initiatives. We mentioned sea vessels and vehicles already. So that's all for the first round. I'd like to use my 5 minutes as well to follow up on certain issues. And in your briefing, in your policy briefing, you mentioned different scopes. But for some scopes, the effort seems to be lacking. For example, for low emission zones, you are only tackling part of the issue. And we have 18 districts in Hong Kong, and yet you are only doing something in 3 districts by restricting high emission buses, and you are not doing anything for other high emission vehicles. Apart from these 3 low emission zones, for the other 15 districts, are you going to designate any of them as low emission zones? Are you going to do something for Kwun Tong, Tung Chung, or Sham Shui Po? These are all highly polluted areas. Apart from buses, as some members have mentioned, are you going to place restrictions on other high emission vehicles? That's my first question. My second question, and during your briefing, you mentioned that Hong Kong has 1,200 electric vehicles, which is more than 40 times compared with 5 years ago. But 1,200 vehicles is still a very small percentage when you think about the overall number of vehicles in Hong Kong. You mentioned challenges with electric charging stations. In fact, I wrote you a letter recently. There's an issue in Cheung Kwan O, a building was barred from installing electric charging facilities by the owners' corporation. If you are to promote electric vehicles, green infrastructure is important. Apart from government car parks, you will also have to install them in other locations. You should have the vision to come up with plans in new towns. For certain new towns, if you are to introduce capacitor buses, you have to do prior planning. For areas under planning, for instance, Kai Tak and Northeastern New Territories and Hong Sui Kiu, is there any green infrastructure in the pipeline? Undersecretary, let me address the first question, and I'll leave the second to my colleagues. You asked whether each district can have its own low emission arrangements. When we look at buses, a lot of routes would cover remote areas as well as busy areas, and by busy areas I'm referring to places like Causeway Bay, TST, and Mong Kok, etc. So on their way from the remote areas to the city, they have to use Euro 4 higher vehicles. And a lot of areas in Hong Kong are also affected by vessels. After berthing, the vessel emissions would spread to neighboring areas. After upgrading the emission standards, a lot of ocean-going vessels will benefit. Apart from the vessels and vehicles in Kowloon East, the government has made it clear that pedestrian planning is one of its key areas of planning, and soon the residents of Kowloon East will understand that some pedestrians and vehicles can exist in harmony, and we can consider extending it to other districts. Of course, cycling is a good idea, but we do need other ancillary facilities, and we also have to garner public support. Electric vehicles, Mr. Andrew Lai. We agree that to promote electric vehicles, we have to have more charging facilities for new development areas. For instance, for northeastern new territories, we have discussed the matter with the Transport Department and the Planning Department. And for charging facilities for buses and other vehicles, can we introduce more facilities at public interchanges? That's something we are looking at. For the Kai Tak development area, we are also doing some work. So the first trial routes for Kowloon motor buses will actually be done in new towns, and 3 minutes each for the second round. Dr. Elizabeth QUAT and Tony Chair. The Secretary talked about the conservation of the countryside, and he mentioned the implementation of the Saiwan Management Plan. And we'd like to know about the progress of the implementation of the plan. And the government promised to the residents of Saiwan that they would make arrangements to improve their living environment. For instance, hostels or live-in units. At that time, incorporating the enclaves into country parks caused great controversies. If Saiwan fails, I think the government should not continue its efforts in the future. So I do hope that the cooperation will go smoothly. Permanent Secretary. Thank you very much for the question. Saiwan was the first piece of private land which was incorporated into a country park. In order to achieve conservation objectives and respect the locals' needs, we do have to balance a number of things, and it's a challenging task. The AFCD is working with the locals and as well as the Country Parks Management Board in our current work. Through the NGOs and villages, we are hoping to achieve the country park objectives, and we have come up with a number of management or collaboration plans. We hope that some villages can we hope that the lives of these villages would not be affected. The details of such plans are still under negotiation. Hopefully, we can involve relevant NGOs, and we would assign or designate certain lands for recreational purposes.
Later on, when a detailed plan is available, we are only too delighted to report these to the panel. Dr. QUAT, I'd like I'm interested in the details. If the details become available, I hope that these will be brought to this panel. Do I have more time? 2 seconds. I don't think you can expect any reply in 2 seconds. Mr. Tony J, Chairman for Green Buildings and Energy Efficiency, I look forward to more that will be undertaken. Electric private vehicles, for instance, and also the mandatory building inspection. In many of the private housing estates, the car parks have been sold to different owners. It would be quite difficult in absence of any government incentives like tax concessions and the like. Now, a couple of years ago, the government incentivized the buildings to replace their elevators. If you're not doing anything, you are not going to achieve a critical mass. You may not be able to multiply the number of electric vehicle fleet on the road. In the light of my experience, the shopping malls are big consumers of electricity. The government offered them some incentives to achieve energy efficiency, and this will be helpful to everybody all around. So if not certain subsidies, then the government can offer them some tax concessions, because these will stand us in good stead. If the private sector is prepared to take part in the energy efficiency initiatives, then it would be good for the situation. Now, trams are pretty environmentally friendly, but the ridership has been lowered. Why doesn't the government promote this? I'm talking about the trams and not the electric vehicles. The government is putting so much emphasis on the MTR and the heavy rail. But what about trams? Secretary, the THB and the ENB are working closely to improve the living conditions of the various districts. So we're encouraging the use of zero emission or low emission transport, like bicycles and the like. We will be liaising with the Highways Department and the Planning Department to see whether there will be opportunities in this regard. Ms. Sitho, we understand that the households are pretty aware of the importance of energy savings or electricity savings, but for commercial premises, for buildings, the energy saving has not been going far enough. The government will be taking the lead, and the government is has started with scores of government buildings. But what about commercial premises and shopping malls? How are you going to promote the carbon audit? It seems that the government is really unable to do anything, but they're just encouraging this practice. We have been encouraging this for a number of years and still unable to achieve the target. So for commercial premises, in particular the commercial, the shopping malls, what specific measures does the government have to promote energy efficiency or to reduce the electricity consumption? Now, you are still encouraging the practice of carbon audit. What more can you do? Under Secretary, I'm sure the encouragement can be in the form of being positive and negative. We have been pretty positive. In the private sector, more and more companies are releasing their audit information, like the carbon audit information. We get to see them in the annual report. Certain listed companies, some of them are large companies in Hong Kong, development companies. They are in their possession a lot of the office buildings and shopping malls, and increasingly they are more and more concerned about the electricity consumption. As the Secretary mentioned earlier, in the near future we will be publishing this report regarding the demand side energy consumption, and there you can see that in the private shopping malls and commercial buildings, they do have plans to have the carbon audit, and also reduction in energy consumption. And we are promoting a timetable in this regard. I'd like to join the queue, Chairman, for the third round. Well, we're here till 4, aren't we? Yes, so we can allow the third round, 2 minutes. Well, are we going to have the descending scale for 4, 3, 2, 1 minutes? Third round? Chairman, I'd like to seek a paper from the administration. I understand how difficult it is for private shopping case. They don't have the obligation to hand in the information regarding whether they're doing it or not in terms of carbon audit, and also whether they will furnish you with the comments from the carbon audit. Are you going to bring pressure to bear on the operators of these shopping malls? Like, for instance, at the cinemas, the chief executives encouraging people to go to the cinemas. There are certain sessions during the day that have pretty low attendance. You may have half a dozen people, but they are turning on the air conditioning like normal. Without any information, the consumers will not try to bring pressure on the commercial operators to introduce energy efficiency measures. How are you going to release the information there? Under Secretary, yes, we do have the charter. Over the years, a lot of companies have already signed up to this charter, and this is the first step. At this panel, we did make available papers in this regard, and we can consolidate the information for members again. Now, these companies would release the information in their annual report if members can be a little bit more patient. Maybe with the information or property management information from the private sector, we should have more information available for members. All right, time's up. We have Mr. Michael Tin for the first round. 5 minutes, please. Chairman, thank you. Couple of things, if I may. Yuen Long Pot Shelter. We're not there yet, Mr. Tin. You're running ahead with yourself. We're still on the policy address briefing. Your question can wait. Any question regarding the policy address? Beg your pardon, Chairman, I was late, and I am given to understand that some members put a question regarding low emission zones. I understand there are 2,000 buses entering this zone, and 1,100 of them measure up to the criteria. For others, that fall short, they will have to be retrofitted with the catalytic converter and also the converter. Is it the case that for the non-complying 1100 buses, the bus operators will be able to get them retrofitted so that you can achieve your target? The city bus, it seems to me, that they are unable to achieve that this year. Also, the coaches. It seems that you are giving up on the coaches until 2019. Is it the case that in the coming 3 years we still have to put up with the coaches in the low emission zones? Now, KMB and the city bus, they have 1100 buses that can be retrofitted in the coming year. What about the coaches? Why do you have to put up with the coaches in these low emission zones for a couple more years? I am concerned that we may end up with a situation that we are not able to achieve the result despite efforts. Mr. Lai, Chairman, Mr. Tin is right. From what we understand from the bus companies, if the franchise buses have to be low emission for the 3 zones, they will need 2,000 buses. As of now, by the end of last year, 2,400, isn't it? They have 2,200 buses that are applying these low emission zones. By the end of last year, half of them, 1,100 or so, have already complied with the low emission requirements. It is our objective that by the end of the year, 100% of the buses will have to measure up. Now, they're doing it through 3 ways. The first one is, well, City Bus said they would be able to achieve that. Well, they told us differently. Now, for the 3 bus operators, they purchase either they purchase new buses, or they retrofit the buses with the converters, or they replace the buses with from their fleet. KMB should be okay. New World and City Bus, they're telling us that by the end of the year they should be able to achieve 85% of their buses. And they have 100 or so buses that are not non-compliant. Well, the number is not all that staggering. What about coaches? For coaches, we do have a plan for Euro 3 or pre-Euro 3 diesel vehicles. They will have to be scrapped. We've already scrapped 21,000 vehicles, about a quarter of them. Now, for pre-Euro or pre-Euro 1 diesel buses, by the early part of 2016, all of them will have been phased out. So that would contribute a lot to the air quality. Mr. Tin, are you saying that by early 2016, all diesel vehicles and coaches will comply with the Euro 4 standards? Well, I heard that we have to wait until 2019. Well, your understanding is right. If all commercial diesel vehicles have to measure up to the Euro 4 emissions standard, then it has to be 2019. What about coaches? Diesel commercial vehicles include coaches.
And for the 82,000 pre-Euro or Euro 1 DCVs, for pre-Euro and Euro 1 vehicles, they will be phased out by the end of 2016. And by 2017 or 18, all is left should only be Euro 2 and 3 DCVs. Why don't you phase all the vehicles out by 2016? At the beginning of last year, before obtaining approval from the Legislative Council on the phasing out scheme, our goal was to phase out 2/3 of all pre-Euro 3 vehicles in Hong Kong. If we phase out the vehicles 100%, it would have a great impact on the trade. So at the end, we drew the line at the end of 2019. I suggest wrapping up this item. So on to item 5 of the agenda, the pot shelter sewerage stage 2 and the Yunlong effluent polishing plants. Let's invite the deputation. Let's invite the administration of representatives. As usual, we will invite the administration to outline the presentation before we open up for questions. According to 83A of the Rule of Ordinance, if you have direct or indirect pecuniary interests, please disclose the nature of such interests. And according to Rule number 84, you have to make the disclosures when you vote if you have direct pecuniary interests. Let's introduce the representatives from the administration. Ms. Christine Low, Undersecretary, Ms. Amy Yun, Assistant Director of the EPD, and Mr. Cheng Hong Leung, Assistant Director of the DSD, and Chief Engineer of the DSD, Mr. Kwok Ping Kang, Mr. Wong Siu Kan, Acting Chief Engineer of the DSD. So who will walk us through this presentation? I have a few words to say while my colleagues prepare for the presentation. And we have two projects, one in Yunlong, one in Sai Kung. They are rather technical in nature. So my teammates will first outline the locations of these projects with all of you. Who will walk us through this presentation? Mr. Wong Sui Kan, the Acting Chief Engineer. Oh, excuse me. Since the seating plan seems to be a bit mixed up, Mr. Cheng Hong Leung, please speak to the microphone. Chairman, members, today I'm going to outline two projects. First, number 272 DS, the pot shelter sewerage stage 2, and the second is item 408 DS, Yunlong effluent polishing plants. First, project 272. We propose upgrading part of the project to Category A to enhance the sewerage system, and the parts for the parts in red, there will be a 1.3 kilometer trunk sewer along Hiram's Highway, as well as about 620 meters of trunk sewers along Ho Chung Road and Lo Mei Chun Road. And in order to achieve cost effectiveness and prevents repeated road opening and interfacing problems due to multiple contractors working at the same site, we propose the construction of the trunk sewers concurrently. The project is expected to begin in the third season of 2015 and will complete in the fourth quarter of 2020. And the total estimate is $69.8 million. And we have consulted the Sai Kung District Council and the Sai Kung Rural Committee, and the relevant members have agreed to this project. And the project is to be aligned with the public sewerage system, and we can further expand the sewage collection system and enhance the water quality and living environment. And at the same time, we can create employment. And for this project, we will create about 12 jobs, including 10 laborers and 2 technical or professional staff. And the other project is item 408DS Yuen Long Effluent Polishing Plants, or YLEPP. And we propose upgrading part of 408DS to category A for the relevant investigation studies and preliminary studies. And this map shows the existing Yuen Long sewage treatment plant. It's located to the north of Tuen Mun. It was commenced in 1984, and the area is 8.38 hectares. And the sources of the sewage is Kam Tin, Pak Heung, etc. And it provides the plant provides secondary treatment service, and the daily capacity is 70,000 square meters, or cubic meters rather. And the purpose of this plant is to in the coming 20 years, the capacity required will increase to 150,000 cubic meters per day, and as such, we need to upgrade the existing treatment plants from secondary to tertiary, and in order to protect the water quality. And we also have to carry out greening works to minimize impacts to the surrounding environment. And the YLEPP will adopt a cleaner approach, and as such, the upgrade can take part in situ, and no land resumption will be required. And we have commissioned a consultancy to conduct a study and detailed design work. The total cost will be $88.9 million, and it will be completed by phase between 2018 to 2021. And in terms of public consultation, we consulted the Pingshan Rural Committee as well as the Environmental Improvement Committee under the Yuen Long District Council, and we have secured their support. We will continue to communicate with the Pingshan Rural Committee, Yuen Long DC, and all relevant stakeholders to optimize our this project of the YLEPP. We will come up with recommendations later on and share with the panel. We'd like to thank the members and chairman for all your support. Question and answers now, 4 minutes each. Mr. Michael Tian. Thank you, Chairman. I've always been concerned with the use of public money. As far as I know, Yuen Long has a sewage treatment plants, and we can process 70,000 cubic meters of sewage every day. And for project 408DS, the aim is to replace the existing plants. And you said the capacity would be increased to 150,000 cubic meters per day. Am I correct? It's that will be the new capacity, not the extra capacity, right? The capacity will increase after the upgrade, right? So what happens with the existing sewage treatment plant, which has a capacity of 70,000 cubic meters? We will the capacity will increase by 80,000 cubic meters to 150,000. So are you going to introduce a new facility, or are you going to take down the existing one and replace it with the new one? Over the course of construction, the Yuen Long sewage treatment plant will remain in operation. So our plan is to take down part of the plants and upgrade it. So my question is, for 408DS, the total cost will reach $70 to $100 million, right? Chairman, our consultant will finish the relevant studies before we can know the estimates. The initial estimate is $70 to $100 million, or rather $7 to $10 billion. You are now replacing an existing plant, and the capacity will be doubled. We are talking about $7 to $10 billion. So perhaps this is not a big number in today's climate, but actually, can we build another new plants, find land somewhere for new plants, and then we can have another. We can have an extra capacity of another 70,000 cubic meters, and as such, we can save this $7 or $10 billion. So, in other words, can we build a new sewage treatment facility? So we can save $5 billion or so if we do this. Apart from increasing the capacity, the sewage treatment level will also be upgraded from secondary to tertiary level. And apart from the increase in capacity, 250,000 cubic meters, we have to upgrade the existing Yunnan plants from secondary to tertiary. So why can't we have two projects? One is for upgrading the existing facility, one for new plants. At least you should come up with two plans and allow us to compare. Undersecretary, anything to add? I think what Mr. Tian said was based on the assumption that we have another plot of land, another plots of suitable land for a new tertiary sewage treatment plant. This has been discussed internally. But to come up with such plot of land which can satisfy all the EIA requirements is extremely challenging. So, as such, we decided that the most pragmatic approach is to upgrade the existing plants. Mr. Tian, are you happy with this reply? So have you checked that you cannot come up with another plot of land, and then we have to bear this $7 or $10 billion? The Yunlong sewage treatment plant must remain in operation. If we are to build a new plant somewhere else, we are talking about securing a new plot of land. So in other words, you don't have any land. So without any land resumption, we found that upgrading the existing facility is the most cost-effective approach. Well, in order to come up with this conclusion, you have to give us the figures. You have to tell us how much it would cost if we are to carry out land resumption. But then it would be much more costly than upgrading. If we are not talking about $7 or $10 billion, if it costs even higher, does it mean we still have to accept it? So is this what you're trying to say? We have looked at other solutions. In fact, perhaps Ms. Yun can address us on the issue.
Chairman, no, the capacity now is 70,000 with secondary treatment, and we're going to increase the capacity and with tertiary treatment. We didn't identify a piece of land to see how much it is going to cost, and we did look at the possibility of moving the plant to caverns. We don't have any suitable caverns where we can move the plant. So since we have to increase the capacity as well as the level of treatment, can we identify land in the vicinity? While we're looking at it, we find that given the scarcity of land, the most cost-effective measure would be to do it in situ. We can provide a tertiary treatment level facility in the same site. Now, with Mr. Tin is saying that with a new piece of land, we can build a tertiary treatment plant, but then we still have to pull down the secondary treatment plant before this can happen. Even Mr. Tin, I'm suggesting that we, by spending maybe $100 million, we can increase the treatment level to tertiary. That's not the case, is it? Yes, indeed. And that's why we are proposing this measure without the need for additional land. Mr. Tony J., 4 minutes. Chairman, I'd like to clarify on this point as well. Now, you are handling 70,000 cubic meters. Is it at capacity? You said a moment ago that you have to upgrade this to tertiary, and there may be a gap when work is underway in terms of capacity. And how are you going to deal with that? Now, the money sought is for a study. Mr. Michael Tin put a question a moment ago. Now, you're upgrading this to tertiary treatment. Will it be cheaper to identify alternative piece of land? How much will it be cheaper? I don't know. Maybe you end up with the same price tag. Obviously, it is understandable that with more capacity, you may need more infrastructure, and it may be more expensive. It may not be fair to put a question like this to you because you haven't got the studies. Are you going to consider the cost effectiveness? Now, if we can identify alternative site, it would be more cost effective, isn't it? Mr. Cheng, Assistant Director, with the additional 80,000 cubic meters capacity is to cater for Kam Tin South, Wangzhou, and Post Shelter. And there is a lot of pollutant from the Yunnan Nala, and that would be, these are the reasons why we have to increase the capacity. Well, when you're upgrading, half the capacity would be gone, and you will only be down to 35 cubic meters. How are you going to cope? Mr. Cheng, in 2021, we should be able to achieve the 35 cubic meters. Before 2021, if we can complete the first phase, we should be able to complete it. So, Mr. J, so the 70,000 is not at capacity at the moment. Second, cost effectiveness, the alternative site, you may not have any information, but I think that you still should consider it. Now, because of the difficulty of identifying land, the price tag may be higher because you have to do this in situ. All right, unless you have any further questions, I'd like to refer this to the PWSC for consideration and declaration of interest. Any objection? If not, then we will refer this to the PWSC. Mr. Tin, did we accept Mr. Tony J's suggestion that the study should cover one more option? Well, the Undersecretary has already addressed the question. Any supplement? Yes, Chairman, we will have some internal discussion. If this can be incorporated, then fine, we can explain this at the PWSC. Mr. Tin, you can rest assured because we're going to brief the PWSC members on the views of members, and the members would be alive to members' concerns. All right, then let's move on to item number 6. Producer Responsibility Scheme on Waste, Electrical and Electronic Equipment. We have Ms. Christine Low and also Mr. Lai, Andrew Lai from the EPD. Dr. Lam from the EPD as well. I'd like to invite the department to brief us on the paper first before I throw the floor open for questions. Undersecretary, your colleague or you who will be doing the presentation? My colleague, beg your pardon, Chairman. Please note that this is a legislative proposal. Are they here yet? Maybe Secretary might wish to have a look. All right. Perhaps we can take a break. Well, I can talk about it. Are you able to give us the presentation? So we don't have to break off the meeting. Well, I may not be able to brief members on the minute details, but I can talk about this in general terms. If members have any questions, we can certainly jot them down. They are dashing down here. No? Well, Undersecretary, will you brief us on the paper first? I understand that the Undersecretary must be familiar with the subject. When your colleagues are here, we can invite them to do more presentation if necessary. Otherwise, we can get on with the questions. Ms. Ho, well, I'm sure we're all familiar with the subject. Can we get down to the discussion? I think the government officials will be taking us through the 18 paragraphs. Well, to be fair, we invite the Undersecretary. Well, Chairman, I'm not going to take members through the 18 paragraphs one by one. We've been here before regarding the facilities. Now, this is about legislating. The details are pretty complicated, but how complicated it is, I'm sure that members will have questions. It's not the first time we've talked about this. We did cover the background in previous meetings. If we get members' support in principle today, then in the near future, in fact, the bill has already been drafted. And maybe in due course, we will be able to submit the bill to the Council. Now, we may spend a couple of months on the deliberation. Now, we spent about a year on the extension of the plastic bag levy. Now, members may have very detailed questions on this particular bill. I don't think I need to go on. A lot of members are pretty familiar with the subject. I'm all ears. All right, I throw the floor open for questions. Each member will be allotted 4 minutes. Ms. Sitho first, please. Thank you. Thanks very much, Chairman. So is this going to be one single bill or a couple of bills? It talks about the waste disposal ordinance. You need to have the license, any area below 100 meters. Square meters will be exempted. Others will have to fulfill all the storage conditions. The other thing is about the charging. This will be in the form of subsidiary legislation. My clarification is how many pieces of legislation will be amended. Is it one or is it more than one? In terms of fees and charges, why do it through subsidiary legislation? what principal legislation are you basing this on? Or I understand that the trade has a lot of doubts in their mind. In terms of the levy, who should be held responsible for paying the levy? According to the paper, the suppliers of the regulated e-waste will be responsible for paying the fees, and you're collecting the levies from them. What about the retail and wholesale? What mechanism would there be for them to collect the fees? This process may not be part of the bill itself, but I think the government has to make sure that the mechanism is going to be effective and fair. Now, this part will not be coming under the law. How can we make sure that the retailers and the wholesalers will not be charging indiscriminately while we can achieve the purpose of recycling? Well, I think we have to wait until my colleagues, they are liaising with the trade precisely in this regard. Perhaps other members can put questions so that we can answer them collectively. Ms. Sidho, any further questions? Well, no. The wholesale or retail sectors, how will the fees be collected? And how will the fees be collected from the consumer if you are charging the regulated waste e-waste recyclers? Ms. Low? Well, I think this question has been addressed because otherwise we wouldn't have been able to put together this bill. The responsibility is pretty clear now. Any further questions? Mr. Chen. Well, Under Secretary, you said that in due course there will be a bill that will be introduced to the floor of the Council. The PwC has already endorsed the funding for the recyclers, and this will go to the Finance Committee. Now, we are concerned that the facilities will be there. Will the bill be able to tie in with this? Now, you talked about in due course. How soon? What month are you talking about within this legislative year? And we don't have the crystal ball. We don't know how long it's going to take the Bills Committee to scrutinize the bill. But if you can let us have the time frame, then members who are interested in joining the bill will get prepared, and they may try to find out more from the administration and the stakeholders. And if amendments have to be made to the bill, and regarding the details then has to do with the facilities in the Eco Park. Under Secretary, we aim to introduce this in March for member scrutiny. Now, all the work has been completed. It is about time we introduce the bill to the Council for scrutiny. I hope that we get the in-principle support from members, and then we will introduce the bill to the Council. In summer this year, I'm not sure whether members can get this completed before the summer recess, and if not, perhaps in 2015 or in 1 year's time, we should be able to get this completed. Ms. Sidho. Chairman, waste reduction and recycling, all the legislative proposals would have our support, but we don't have very much time left in this term. The PRS and also the charging for MSW, the municipal solid waste. Now we're going to have the electrical election and the DC Council election coming up. Certainly, this would hint on the position of the parties. I hope that the bills can be introduced so that we can have a more comprehensive discussion and try to get these measures through as soon as possible. Otherwise, we are very concerned by 2016 summer off. We may not be able to have the resumption of second reading debate, and we're going to have 2 years of delay.
Chairman, We will submit this legislation to the Council in March. So before the end of the current term of the Council, hopefully we can get it done. You are very optimistic. Yes, we are optimistic in a way. And in terms of municipal solid waste charging, we have not started drafting the legislation yet. We are only doing some preliminary work. We have discussed the legislation for a long time, and later this year we will have further discussions. My teammates have arrived. I'd like to welcome Mr. Samson Lai and Dr. Elaine Lam from the EPD for joining. Ms. Sidho, can you repeat your question on the legislative amendments and the WEE producer responsibility scheme? I have two questions. First, I'd like the administration to tell us whether this is one legislative proposal or a bundle of legislative proposals. And second, for the licensing, introduction of a licensing scheme. And will these two legislative proposals be submitted at the same time? What is the timeline? And in paragraph 14, you said you would charge a recycling fee. I'm not sure whether this fee will be charged to retailers or wholesalers. And it has always been a controversy who is going to pay the recycling fee. So we'd like to know whether the retailer or wholesaler will bear the charge. And should consumers or customers be responsible for part of the fee? And how do we make sure that the suppliers are treating or recycling the equipment properly? We have two phases in terms of the legislative proposal. In the first phase, we will submit the draft bill to LegCo, and it's divided into two parts. The first part is about the Product Eco-Responsibility Ordinance or PERO, and the second is the Waste Disposal Ordinance or WDO. And details of these ordinances will be tackled in the form of subsidiary legislation, which will be submitted later on. And the subsidiary legislation will cover the fees for recycling. Last Friday, we discussed a recycling treatment plans on the PWSC meeting, and we have to wait until the contracts of the treatment plant is secured before we can ascertain the costs and come up with recommendations for the fees to be charged. The report will be submitted to the LegCo later on, and in phase one of the phase one of the bill will soon be ready, and hopefully it can be submitted to the Legislative Council at the end of the current term. And we will enter the second phase after we have confirmed the bill. And for the suppliers, suppliers are defined as importers and manufacturers of the products. And we have indeed discussed this issue for quite some time. For retailers, if they only have to pay the fee after they sell the goods, then the cost would be lower for the retailers. And some people feel that if they are only charged at the retail level, does it mean that suppliers and other stakeholders have no role to play? And in terms of imports, should we charge an import recycling fee as with other dutiable commodities? and the cost is very high, and we have to track the flow of the goods, so administrative costs would be very high. And the current proposal was drafted after lengthy discussions with the trade. And right now, under the proposal, the trade will make periodic reports to the government. And so we are trying to strike a balance. And for the mischarging of fees under the law, there is no stipulation on the percentage to be paid. So we have to leave this to the market. And the trade feels that there should be a clear charging scheme. Because part of the charging fee will be reflected on the selling price, and under paragraph 12b and under the law, we require very clear wording on the products on how much recycling fee will be charged by the government. 4 minutes, please, including question and answer. Of course, we might have redundant questions, so I will give the administration some more time to address the questions. Mr. Tony Chair, Mr. Charles Mok. So, Ms. Sit-Ho, if you want to ask another question, you can wait for the second round. Mr. Tony Chair. In the principle, I support the legislative proposal, but for paragraph 5 of the paper, we propose including 5 types of products, and according to the paper, they account for about 85% of all WEEE products. So how do you gauge? How did you conduct this assessment? Was it calculated by weight? For certain products, they might not be very heavy, but yet they might also pollute the environment. So what is the government's view? Did the government ignore any of such products? And some of these products might be these products might change according to market trends. So are we going to amend the legislation again later? So for licensing control, there's an exemption for disposal of waste in premises not more than 100 square meters. So what actually is the difference between granting a license and not granting a license? And if a licensing control system is introduced, there might be a lot of burdens for a lot of recyclers, and they might try to circumvent the regulations. And as we mentioned last week in another meeting, when we designed the producer responsibility scheme, we propose adopting a gradual approach. We would not cover, we would not try to cover everything at the same time. My question was, is the weight of the products directly proportional to the pollution generated to the environment? For WEEE products, for products which contain harmful substances, they would already be covered by other legislations. For PRT, for CRT monitors or TVs or batteries, they are already covered. For goods such as washing machines, their environmental impacts are relatively lower. And weight is also a fair indicator or a fair yardstick. And we will certainly conduct periodic reviews in the future. And in the past few years, we could see that the products are ever changing. So this is something we have taken into account. And for the requirement of 100 square feet or 50 square meters, we hope to come up with a creditable recycling scheme or responsibility scheme. In terms of pollution control, some products might not be covered, but we hope that our new producer responsibility scheme would be comprehensive. Chairman, if we have a licensing control scheme, then a lot of requirements must be kept, and as such, companies might try to limit their premises to 100 square meters. This is one potential problem we will see in order to, if some people want to avoid getting a license. Would there be any legal loopholes resulted from the land area requirement? In the eco park, one of our projects spanned almost 5,000 square meters. And if we are talking about 100 square meters or 100 square feet, we are trying to filter out premises we don't want to regulate. Mr. Charles Mok. Generally, I support this legislative proposal for a producer responsibility scheme on WEEE. I have a lot of questions. In fact, the first question is, you propose regulating 5 types of products. In previous meetings, we have talked about the issue of definitions. For example, by television sets, we have no way to tell whether they're computers or TVs. And for washing machines, we might have new strands of products in the future, and it might be difficult to define such products. Last week during the Public Works Subcommittee meeting, a member asked that computer products would not include phones or smartphones, but yet you would cover tablets. So what's the definition of tablets? Is it defined by size or the screen size? A lot of products actually have very similar model numbers, and the only difference is one digit or one alphabet. So how are you going to tackle these situations? I'm sure you won't specify the specific screen size. And for computer products, the computer products might actually cover mobile phones or digital cameras. They might be considered computer products under other laws. So will there be any discrepancies between this legislation and many other legislations? I think this is something our legal team can tackle. So the definitions are really important. Even if you align the definitions with other legislations, a few years down the line, the definitions of the products might be changed by the law enforcers. Are we going to see such problems? Definitions are an important part of this bill, so we will coordinate with other departments later on.
The washing machine, fridge, and air conditioning. There are definitions in the energy efficiency labeling for TV and computers and screens, and we did spend some efforts drawing up the definition. We may not be prepared to talk about this in detail today, but during the clause-by-clause scrutiny, members will get to see the details. For computers, there are different pieces of legislation that define computers. We liaised with the DOJ, and in this bill is going to be narrowed down, and we do have a schedule for this purpose. I'm sure that at the Bills Committee we can have a further discussion regarding computer, tablets, or handsets. The dimension we do have regard to the different dimensions of handsets in the market. We can discuss this at the Bills Committee. Now things are changing rapidly. We may need to consider a review. That the definitions of the e-waste, we consider the products available in the market and how they are distinguished in the market. In the days to come, we can certainly revisit this. Chairman, I know time is up, but I'll come back with further questions. Thank you very much for the elucidation. I'd like to find out more about the definition. And we have to get ourselves prepared. I'm going to ask the DOJ about the definition under different pieces of legislation. If you have a detailed definition, it would be a good idea, because in other legislation, the absence of detailed definition would give rise to other problems. Right? You join for the second round. Okay, then, Mr. Paul J. I'd like to put a broader question. Hong Kong is a small city, and we simply cannot be isolated from a lot of the problems. Now, we don't have any manufacturing sector in Hong Kong. Now, if you spread the responsibilities between the wholesalers, retailers, and in the process of production, the manufacturers play a more significant role in other jurisdictions. Is there any other model that we can copy? What about Singapore? Singapore has a similar size, is of a similar size to Hong Kong, but they do have a huge component of manufacturing. Hong Kong doesn't have enough land. Hong Kong doesn't have the scale of manufacturing. Now, in the gutter oil, we would have liked to produce the biofuel, but Hong Kong doesn't have the facilities to enable us to achieve that, and it would be far more cost-effective for the waste oil to be shipped back to the mainland for reproduction. Now, in other jurisdictions, they have these facilities, but in absence of the manufacturing industry, like paper and car tires, we don't have the scale to have the manufacturing sector created, and in a way we may not be able to achieve that. Mr. Lai. Chairman, Singapore doesn't have this kind of PRS. We learned from the European example in the region. Taiwan and Japan and Korea are practicing this. Mr. J. Well, in Korea, Taiwan, they have the manufacturers, but it's not so much in Hong Kong. Yes, indeed. It comes back to the recycling facilities. Now, the question lies with whether the government should provide the facilities or whether it should be left to the private sector. In Europe and the countries in the places in the region, they have the manufacturers, and it is the manufacturers that investing in the dismantling. It is more convenient, and the government doesn't make any investment. But in Hong Kong, at the beginning of the consultation, we have to discuss whether the government should provide the facilities. Mr. J. Now, the stakeholders have to be held responsible. The manufacturers are one of the key stakeholders. Now, if that's the case, then the responsibility would be passed on to the wholesalers, retailers, and the distributors. Well, we must have the capacity to handle the recycling. Now, the member mentioned the manufacturers in other jurisdictions, and the PRS can be fulfilled much better. That much I agree. In Japan and Europe, the manufacturers would factor this in the design. in Hong Kong, we simply cannot achieve that through this legislation. But we tend to use a lot of products from Korea, Japan and Europe, and we stand to benefit from that. We don't necessarily need to have our own manufacturers before we can roll this out. But certainly without the manufacturers, it would be hard for us to do anything about it. Through our discussion with the trade, we're trying to do our best in relation to the collection of fees. Mr. Kenneth Leung, Chairman. Now this e-waste recycling, can you tell us which process would consume the most energy? And the other thing is the detoxification of the e-waste. Now the hazardous components, how are you going to deal with the hazardous components? Will you consign them to the landfills, or how are you going to deal with the hazardous components in the process? Right. I try to answer these in layman's term. The processes, some of the processes will involve manual dismantling, and some of the components are hazardous, and then the materials will be crushed by heavy-duty equipment. This doesn't involve any material recovery, and the electricity consumption will not be any higher than any ordinary industrial undertaking. Dr. Lam, I wish to supplement. For hazardous components, that they are covered under the existing legislation. In Chengyi, we have the Chemical Waste Treatment Center, which is capable of handling these components. If we don't have, we can't cope with them in Hong Kong, we can ship them out like rechargeable batteries. We ship them to Japan and Korea. We will not deal with them in an improper way. Dr. Lam. Mr. Lai talked about the energy consumption. The energy consumption will not be too high within the plant. In the process of collection, it would be the most expensive, because you have to go and collect these e-waste all over Hong Kong, and the fuel cost would be higher by comparison with the actual processing of the waste. Mr. Leung, well, you talked about the rechargeable batteries. Hong Kong doesn't have the capacity, and they will be exported to Korea and Japan. Are there any international practices that a convention that they have to receive our waste? Is there any protocol that we export these waste to these jurisdictions, Mr. Lai? Well, there is a market mechanism. There are a lot of available materials in these rechargeable batteries. Under the voluntary recycling program, these batteries are exported to these jurisdictions for recycling. These will cover the cost of some of our recycling programs. Mr. Leung, is there any international convention regarding the hazardous components? Or is it the case that because of the mutual benefits, you are sending or exporting these hazardous components to Japan and Korea? Is there an international convention that ban this, or are these materials that can be exported freely from one country, from one place to another? Mr. Lai, well, under the Basel Convention, there is regulation. We are in compliance with the Basel Convention in this export. Ms. Sit Ho, Mr. Charles Mock, and myself for the second round. I'll go last. We do have enough time and each member will be given 4 minutes for the second round if the officials don't really mind. Ms. Sitho, please. Chairman, thank you. Well, the legislative proposal is about who the fees will be collected from. Now, if they can collect money from the consumer, they don't have any incentive unless you have the prohibition regarding landfill entry. Now, if you ban them from the landfills, it will be difficult for them to stop them collecting the money and not doing anything. If the legislative proposal is about fee collection without any supervision, then they charge the money, and then they can do fly tipping and dump the waste anywhere. Like Mr. Leung said, if you don't have the technology to dismantle the components, they will have to be shipped elsewhere. So the fees collected will have to be proportional to the costs involved. Now, they have to pay the government. The government collects the fees. Are you going to provide the service? How will the fees be used for? The paper is silent on this. Do we have to wait until the bill comes along? Mr. Lai, can you start with the landfill? Right, we can start with the fee collection. Now, we can't say how much it's going to be because we have to consider how much we have to spend on the whole thing. One of the elements is the cost for the facility. Now, if we have to charge the fee for the different items, then the government will have the stream of revenue, and then the facility operator will be working on the basis of a BOT arrangement. Now, their service will involve the collection of these e-waste all over Hong Kong and have them sent to Tuen Mun for treatment. Depending on the volumes, we will pay them, disperse the funding accordingly. So it's going to be a polluter pays principle. The government will be recovering the cost in full. In Para 8, there is a mention of the removal services as part of the scheme. Now, this is also the practice in other jurisdictions. The suppliers will be collecting the old items. We are building in this element into the equation. Now, for other jurisdictions, the shops will just do the collection, but here we are involving the suppliers, and the suppliers will have to collect the old items in the process of supplying the new ones. And they can make arrangement for the logistics themselves. The facilities operators can, at our request, provide similar services. So in terms of collection, our facilities operators have the responsibility for collection, and we do have the targeted tonnage that they have to fulfill. As regards the retailers, under the law, they will need to make the necessary arrangement. In our contact with them, these would be regarded as one of the after-sale services. The consumers do enjoy this kind of service at the present moment. In future, this is going to be provided for free, and the delivery and the collection will be guaranteed. So in terms of processing and collection, we do have the measures to tackle this kind of situation.
Chairman, I have 2 points to follow up. You mentioned that the WEE treatment center will pay the collectors, but the question is, when the collectors collect the equipment, will they provide any rebates to the consumers? So this is something we have not seen under the existing system for big appliances like TVs, refrigerators, etc. The the consumer would prefer you to take it away. But for small appliances, what happens? They might the consumers might not have the incentive to hand over smaller appliances, so you have to provide some kind of rebates to consumers. So of course I'm not talking about the legislative proposal, but under the system you should provide some incentives. When someone disposes a piece of equipment, how does it end up in your hands? So you have to come up with some administrative measures. What we propose is a little bit different from the proposal we see right now. So I think the administration should try to promote the recycling flow to the general public. You have to establish a comprehensive legislative system, so it takes some time. Second round, Mr. Charles Mok. Thank you, Chairman. I'm sure the public is very concerned with the new initiatives. Last week, we approved this project under PWSC as well as relevant projects. At that time, there were news reports that the recycling cost will be transferred to the consumer. Of course, I understand that this is hard to get around, and the government is saying that you will control the cost, and you will cover different products. Does it mean that registered suppliers can do the distribution under the supply chain? How does it work? I think the public's biggest concern is that in the supply chain, some people would try to overcharge, for instance, charging at levels above what is established by the government. So how would you monitor the scheme? When I buy a washing machine, would I have to pay an extra, let's say, $20 as recycling cost or recycling fee? So I'd like to make this clear. Whether I have to pay an extra recycling fee, and even if I have to pay an extra fee, I have to know what I'm receiving. Or would the extra costs actually be incorporated into the selling price? Which approach would be better for the consumer in terms of enhancing transparency? After discussions with the trade, I think the best way to do it is to, after collecting the appliances, the fee should be reflected, should be established by the market, and the selling price might be increased. And under paragraph 12A in the paper, we ask the suppliers to specify on the recycling labels the amounts of recycling fee imposed on the goods, so that consumers can see how much of the selling price is on the product and how much of the fee is on recycling. And the part of the recycling fee might also be borne by the trade. So both situations are possible. Because of competition, they might choose to do that. But for the sake of transparency, we have to make the wording consistent. Mr. Charles Mok. I think the public have to learn to get used to it. You mentioned market competition. If some suppliers said they would bear the recycling costs or recycling fee in order to gain an edge in the pricing, that's all good. But I'd like to mention two more points. For for the parallel trading of electronics or electric goods, are they going to be covered? It makes no difference. They would be covered. The scheme would cover all the goods imported into Hong Kong. For these 5 types of products, can you provide any statistics? Is it easy for you to identify the importers? I don't know how the importers would register their products. When you talk about WEEE, are all of them registered and trackable or traceable? Would it be difficult to trace certain parallel traders? It's a big question mark for us. And when the consumers purchase from these traders, they would not know how much of the fee would go towards recycling. We have about 100 importers, and under the scheme, or under this design of the scheme, we don't distinguish between normal traders and parallel traders. For tourists who purchase goods overseas, and they would not be regulated under the existing scheme. But if the products will be resold or traded, normal traders and parallel traders will be given this same treatment. Mr. Mark, I'm not very familiar with WEEE products, so I will wait for further updates from the administration on the situation of imports. And you need to give us more confidence. For air conditioners, washing machines, or fridges, perhaps the problem won't be so serious. But for electronics or tablets, when you look at electronics or computer magazines, you would know that new brands come up all the time. If someone imports such products, whether normally or by parallel trading, if the traders don't register under your scheme, it will be illegal. Is that the situation? Since we still have some time, please let me finish. In the paper, under the penalties you propose, you have not mentioned the different extents of infringements. And for suppliers or recyclers, you mentioned storage restrictions. So what are the penalty levels you are talking about, Mr. Lai? We have different penalties for different regulations. I cannot, I don't want to be too generic. And under the existing product eco-responsibility ordinance and waste disposal ordinance, we will take reference from similar penalties or ordinances, and we can discuss the details later. And by the time the bill is submitted to the Legislative Council, we will be able to discuss other issues on, for example, the flow of WEEE, the gatekeeping for exports, etc. We will tackle these issues later on. And in 2010, starting from 2010, we have seen the relevant consultation papers. So I think this scheme is can be considered a success so far. And the construction of Eco Park will eventually be able to cover 85% of the WEEE. So what about the 15% which cannot be covered. So through various exemption schemes, this 15% might be excluded, and we also have to consider the operations of medium to small recyclers. We have to allow them room to survive. And in the paper, you have the 100 square meter or 100 square feet or 50 square meter exemption. Is this really in line with the situation in Hong Kong, with the existing recyclers in Hong Kong? Would the existing recyclers in Hong Kong be able to benefit? We might have to conduct some site checks or investigations to see whether they are complying with the rules or fire safety regulations. I'm sure the EPD or other government departments have roles to play. You are talking about implementation in a gradual manner, so I hope that by the time the bill is submitted to the Legislative Council, the public will know what the regulation is about. And for terminal treatment, we have 2 landfills. 2 of them will be expanded, and 1 is under study. We will also have 1 incineration facility. And when the funding approval was approved, we talked about why WEEE should not be treated at terminal facilities. Why should these products not go into landfills or incinerators, but instead end up at other facilities? We have to, you have to let the public know very clearly of your thinking. And as Mr. Mok said, some of the WEE might end up at these sites because they are not needed or used anymore. And somehow they might end up at landfills or the incinerator. So I think these are some things the government must consider before you submit the bill to LegCo. At this stage, we don't know the cost yet, but for the landfills and incinerator, the costs will differ based on the size of the rubbish or trash. We are talking about 10-year contracts and an annual operating cost of around $200 million. We understand that there would be subsidiary legislation later on, but by March, I think the government should give us their initial views or some initial formulas on how the recycling fees would be calculated. So this would be better for the public and the trade. So I hope you take note of these issues. Any follow-up questions on this paper from members? If not, that's about it for today. Thank you very much, the administration, for attending. If we have no other business, meeting is adjourned.